Man, we got a lot to rap about. And what a weekend it was. Oh man, so much going on. Lots going on in the NFL. Big JT versus Jim Irsay saga in Indy. We're gonna highlight all of that, get you up to speed on what's going on with that situation. That's a mess. A whole mess and a half. Huge fight in the world of boxing. You know, I'm a big boxing fan, so I want to touch on that. Twitter is dead. Who knew? A lot of y'all knew. Nobody told me anything, though. All of that and more here on the 353rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 353rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So before we get into the shits today, man, let's talk about the weekend that was. So before we even get into the fight, because I want to talk about that for a little bit, Twitter was making the transition, and I was so oblivious. People had been saying for months, Twitter, as we all know it, is coming to an end. The minute that Elon Musk purchased it, it was going to change, and we had seen, changes being rolled out from, the blue checks, and you could, pay for a blue check and things of that nature, and all of that stuff, and different things that they were trying to implement to make Twitter profitable. And that stuff doesn't bother me. Can I still tweet? Do I still have my 140 characters? If that's so, I don't care about, and they've extended things, and you can say more, and you can add different, threads and all of that stuff. If I can get my message across, then that's all I care about. If I can see the things that I need to see, that's all I care about. So I've gotten used to the bird, though. I've gotten used to the little, because I've already darkened anybody that doesn't use Twitter in dark mode. You're a weirdo. Sorry, not sorry. You're a weirdo. So my Twitter's already dark. So the X doesn't bother me, but I'm used to seeing a little bird. So when I go on my phone and I go to pull up the icon and I see this X, I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I'm reading about everything, and they're rolling out all these changes. And it started first with the desktop. And they rolled out the changes there, and then they slowly rolled them over to the mobile devices. And Twitter is now X. It's no longer called Twitter, and we're still calling it Twitter. And I don't know how long it'll take for it to not be called Twitter, but it's X. How do you guys feel about this? Do you even care? Caught me off guard. I'm not really feeling it, but it doesn't change the way that I conduct business on X. Are we going to rebel? Are we going to just keep calling it Twitter anyway? Or are we going to make the transition and actually call it X? Y'all let me know in the comment section what's really going on with that situation, because I'm kind of clueless as to what's going on. Anyway, I digress. So the fight over the weekend, the fight was everything. Now, look, I told y'all last week who was going to win the fight. I told y'all Bud Crawford was going to win the fight, right? Now, did I think it was going to be that dominant of a performance? No. And I think Errol Spence is a good fighter. I feel like he's fought some decent fighters, but I didn't think it was the level of the fighters that Bud Crawford had fought. And then I don't think he's on the level of Bud Crawford. And I think that was apparent. I think we saw that on Saturday, that he is not in the same class as Bud Crawford. But then again, who is? And there's been this debate, and Inoue had a big fight. I think it was Tuesday last week, and he destroyed a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be one of his toughest tests, and he destroyed him. And so everybody wanted to crown him pound for pound the best in the sport. How is Bud Crawford not the best pound for pound in boxing after that dominant performance? You know what was the craziest about that fight? It wasn't just the sheer dominance in which he won that fight. It's the ease in which he did it and how he looked like he hadn't even been in a fight. Like, my man's wasn't even breathing hard. I think the most energy he expended the entire night was jumping on the ropes after he won. Like, he wasn't even sweating. I don't know if he even sweated in the fight at all. It was crazy. You look at pictures after the fight, he's, posing with the belt. He's posing with different celebrities that came backstage. He came out with Eminem. Royce the 5'9" was back there with him. And he's posing in all these pictures. And he doesn't look like he was in a fight. Somebody, my man Craig was like, he looked like he just had a light jog. It didn't even look like that, because even with a light jog, there's perspiration. He didn't even sweat. Okay? It was insane how easy he made it look against a world-class fighter. Keep in mind, Errol Spence was undefeated. Okay? The ass whooping that he took was so bad. Stephen A. Smith said that he thinks, and again, Stephen A., one of the sports he's allowed to talk about that I will listen, there's two sports, basketball and boxing. I don't want to hear from Stephen A. Smith and no other sport, not football, not baseball, nothing. When he talks boxing and he talks basketball, I'll listen, because those are the two sports that he actually knows what the hell he's talking about. And I had forgotten that Errol Spence got in a car accident. And he said Oscar De La Hoya had to remind everybody, because Stephen A. himself said he forgot. And Oscar reminded everyone that he got in that car accident in 2019. And yeah, reconstructive jaw surgery, all of that stuff. And he's been in another accident. And he's dealt with a number of things dealing with that upper region, neck up. And he took a beating, man, in that fight. And he said, I would consider retire. He's not going to retire. That's crazy talk. Like, Errol Spence, this is his first loss. But do we need to see a rematch? I know what the answer is for me. I can't speak for y'all. I don't need to see that shit again. And what Stephen A. said, he compared it to. He said, this is malpractice of the highest order. It's reminiscent of when Tua Tagovailoa got the concussion against the Dolphins, or the Bills rather, was allowed to stay in the game, finished the game, then came out 4 days later on Thursday Night Football, played against Cincinnati, and got his ass mollywopped and was out on the field, laid out, and had to be carried off in a stretcher. That should have never happened. It was malpractice. People were fired because of that, right? Jobs were lost because he was allowed to play on that Thursday night game. And going back into that Bills game as well. He said it would be the equivalent of that if he were allowed to fight Bud Crawford again in December. He said he wants to fight him again in December. There is a clause in the contract that allows for them to fight again. I hope Bud is like, nah, I'm good. And he goes up to like 154. Errol, don't chase him. Don't just leave it, bro. Just leave him alone, bro. Don't go barking up that tree again. What it feels like it's trending towards is Wilder and Fury. The biggest difference is Wilder, I thought, won the first fight. I thought he knocked down Fury, and it was one of the slowest 10 counts I've ever seen in my life. They gave him an opportunity to get up. He should have been counted out of that fight. But after that, it was apparent that Deontay Wilder couldn't box with Tyson Fury. It was apparent. And after the second fight, we didn't need a third fight. We got it anyway, and it was a total ass whooping. We're past that with this one. We don't even, it was never close. We don't need another fight. At 40-0, with 31 knockouts, is Terrence Bud Crawford not the best fighter we've seen since Floyd Mayweather? Can we all acknowledge that? Who in the sport is better than me right now? pound for pound. He's a technician. He can fight orthodox or southpaw. He's got power in both hands. He's got immaculate footwork. He protects himself. He's got a chin. One of the funniest things I heard, and this is one of the things you notice in boxing real quick, is when a fighter knows you can't hurt him. Because, the first round is usually a feeling out process, right? Where you're just trying to make sure, you see what the other guys got going on. You don't want to get caught with nothing early, being over aggressive. Just kind of feeling each other out. I thought that Crawford gave him the first round. After that, total onslaught after that. Gave him the first round. You can have that one. That one's on me. Second round, Crawford said he got hit because it was amazing. We're watching the fight with Boss. Boss is my dad, right? I'm watching the fight. I'm at my uncle's house. Boss there. One of my best friends is there. Whole family, because my uncle had a housewarming, right? So we were already over there. We watched the fight over there, and you saw the aggression uptick in the second round from Crawford. And he said after the fight, in the second round, he hit me right on the button, right on my chin. And he caught me flush. And he said, "That's it? That's all you got?" And at that point, he got super aggressive. And we all said it in the moment, like, oh, he turning it up now. We didn't know at the time that he had got caught flush and tasted his power and said, "Hey, this ain't shit. This tastes like cotton candy. I'm going to walk through that. That's soft, like drugstore cotton." And from that point on, he was aggressive. He wasn't afraid of Errol Spence anymore. Like, if that's the best you got, bro, you ain't got nothing for me. And from that point on, he was moving forward. He was the aggressor. He was attacking. And Crawford's more of a counterpuncher. And he was aggressive. He was attacking. And he knocked him down in the second round, knocked him down twice in the seventh round, and then finished him off in the ninth. I mean, it was a virtuoso performance. We need more of those in boxing, though. Not outcomes like that, but we just need more fights with big, stars fighting each other. But when you get ass whoopings like that, I think it scares the fighters from fighting each other. Like, you need close fights like Haney and Lomachenko so that these fighters want to fight each other. When you get an ass whooping like that, you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. Anyway, that was a great fight on the part of Bud Crawford. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to the gym dropping session, shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-E-E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, a drama started last week. It spilled over into the weekend. So, we've been talking about the running back position ad nauseum on this podcast because so much has been going on with that position from the time that all of these running backs, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and Tony Pollard, all were franchise tagged. We knew that this was going to become a topic of discussion because everybody else is getting paid. Everybody is getting their money. We're seeing all of the averages of the top 5 highest paid players at these respective positions go up every single year. And the only position that's not is running back. So we knew this was going to turn into an issue. Nobody wants to pay running backs. So Saquon takes a lousy 1-year deal. But, okay, look, I've already told you, he's a company man. He did what he needed to do to get back on the field. He wanted to play football, and that's okay. I told you Josh Jacobs is the one that he's about that life, and he wants all the smoke. So I can see him, sitting out as long as he feels like he needs to make his point. Tony Pollard's not sitting out. We already know Jerry ain't going for that shit, and so. But the running backs are starting to band together, all that stuff. We talked about the Zoom call that they had led by Austin Eckler, and Jonathan Taylor was one of the guys that was there and a bit outspoken. And he tweeted about, the mistreatment of running backs and all of the things that has gone on of recent note that has really highlighted the struggles of the running back position as a whole to get what they feel like they deserve. And so that prompted Jim Irsay to start flapping off his gums again. And I said this on the Reign of Terror series, that once Dan Snyder exited the league, I think Jim Irsay has jumped towards the top of the list. I don't know if he's number one. Somebody said Dean Spanos. That's a pretty good damn answer, right? There's some bad owners in the NFL. Snyder was so far ahead of everybody else that those guys kind of got drowned in the tidal wave known as Dan Snyder. Now that Snyder is gone, I think now the spotlight kind of shifts to some of these other bad owners that have been getting a pass because of Dan Snyder. So Dean Spanos is one of them, the owner of the Los Angeles Chargers. But Jim Irsay is another. And Irsay isn't as bad as Spanos, but he talks too damn much. He's like Jerry Jones in that regard. And Irsay he just doesn't know what to say out of his mouth, and he talks too damn much. And sometimes, same thing with Jerry, you start drama and issues because you just don't know how to shut the hell up. And when you got a lot of money, you've always felt like you're in a position to say whatever the hell you want to say. Who's going to tell you not to, right? So this drama, totally unavoidable. This did not have to happen, but Irsay decided to interject himself into something, speak for no reason, and now this has turned into a thing, and it's getting ugly. And we already know, as a Washington fan, I can tell you, Jim Irsay is petty as hell. We saw the shit he did, the smear campaign he ran on Carson Wentz last year. Forget about Carson Wentz, the football player, because he's no longer in the league and he's ass, and his career is probably done. And all of that said, they attacked Carson Wentz with such vigor last offseason. It was disgusting. Okay. That was disgusting what they did to Carson Wentz last year. And so we know the lengths that he can go to be petty. So let's dive into this Jim Irsay JT beef and kind of get you up to speed on everything that has transpired and where we are right now. So the Jonathan Taylor, and I'm going to read you a tweet from JASRI Football. All right. This tweet, I think, encapsulates the entire situation. The Jonathan Taylor Colts drama right now is absolutely insane and unique. Here's the timeline. It starts with Jim Irsay tweeting about the running back situation, saying that agents are selling bad faith. And essentially what he was referring to in that tweet is that these agents are telling these running backs that, hey, you're going to get X amount of money. You go out, you do this, you do that, and the money's going to come to you, right? And he's essentially saying they're selling you a pipe dream. They're selling you that if you go out, you do all the things you're supposed to do, like the other positions, like they're supposed to sell their players. You go out, you play hard, you do the things you're supposed to do, and it'll take care of itself. And Irsay even went on to say that these agents are kind of trying to paint the new CBA in a bad light, XYZ. And so it started a drama that wasn't necessarily there. So after that, so let's go back a bit in the timeline. Apparently, Jonathan Taylor had went to GM Chris Ballard asking to be traded several days before that tweet. Okay, so he already wanted out of Indy, and I'd been adamant saying that I didn't think Indy was going to screw Jonathan Taylor. I was wrong, flat out wrong about that situation. You're going to hear about it here in a second. Jonathan Taylor's agent responds by saying bad faith is not paying your best player. So he responded to the Jim Irsay tweet by saying bad faith is not paying your best player. Irsay says the team hasn't and doesn't plan on offering JT an extension. Now, I hadn't heard that, but that is as bad as you can handle that situation by coming out while your guy's in year 3 of his rookie contract. I believe this is year 3. This might be the final year because he was a second round pick. This might be the final year of his rookie deal. I'm trying to think. His rookie season was 21, I believe. If that's the case, then this is his 3rd year in the league. I feel like 20 was his rookie season, though. I really feel like 20 was his rookie season. So if 20 is his rookie season. This is the last year of his rookie deal. So he's up for a contract extension. Anyway, that might explain, though, why JT went to GM Chris Ballard and said, I want out, because he might have already gotten wind of the fact that they had no intentions of paying him, which he's like, if you're not going to pay me, somebody else will. So just let me go. Irsay then responded after, when the news got out about JT wanting not news didn't get out. He heard it from Chris Ballard, who told the owner, Jim Irsay, hey, JT came to me. He wants out. He wants to be traded. So Irsay invites Jonathan Taylor to his private bus, and they have a meeting, all right, quote unquote meeting. Not long after that meeting, Jonathan Taylor's trade request becomes public. Irsay reaffirms that they won't offer him an extension. Irsay says, and then I literally saw the clip of Irsay saying this, and I'm like, what a dumbass. Like, he just doesn't get it, does he? He says, if I die tonight and Jonathan Taylor is out of the league, no one will miss us. He's not wrong. But guess what? That's not the thing that you say in this situation. Now, is it? Okay. The point he's trying to make is, look, this league stops for no man. This league is going to keep going no matter what happens. You're not wrong, but that doesn't change the fact that you've refused to pay Jonathan Taylor. This man is trying to get to the bag. You're preventing him from doing that. And you're vocal about it, and you're throwing it in his face, essentially, and saying, I'm not going to give you any money. What you going to do about it? It's bullshit. And then you start talking this foolishness. Oh, if I die, nobody wants to hear that shit. What I want to talk about are the facts. And the fact remains, I'm the best player on this team, and you're not going to pay me. There's a problem there. If you're not going to pay me, let me go somewhere else where someone will. So now, here's where shit gets really, really crazy, okay? Colts now considering placing Jonathan Taylor on the NFI list, which could forfeit his 2023 salary. What comes next? Taylor gets traded? And that's the end of the tweet. And so if they put him on the NFI list, then this situation takes a turn, because he's got a back injury right now. How severe this back injury is? See, this is the thing. This is where you get into murky waters, especially with the running backs. We've already heard them talk about exacerbating injuries, right? Take a situation where you would have played through it before, and it's camp. And if you got anything, if you're still dealing with something from the offseason, maybe you had a procedure, you had something cleaned up. If you're still a little sore, still not 100%, this is the time you take off and you get to 100%. But if this whole saga wasn't going on with Jonathan Taylor, if he had just gotten his bread from the Colts, let's say they signed him to a 4-year, $70 million extension in the offseason, is he out with a back injury right now, or is he in camp? I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't know how severe the back situation is. I don't know if he had a procedure done and he's still kind of healing from that, or if something flared up, or if he's just like, I'm not going out here. Yeah, my back, I could practice. I could be out there with my teammates, but I'm not putting my body on the line for these clowns. I'm over them. I don't know what it is right now. And this is where it gets murky. And first of all, the Colts are in no position. Like, first of all, they suck. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't know if they're really tripping over this, because they're gonna be trash, honestly speaking. Unless Anthony Richardson ends up having like a Cam Newton, Robert Griffin III type of rookie season, Andrew Luck type rookie, like, they're gonna be trash. So it's not really gonna matter, but they can't survive without Jonathan Taylor. If they don't have a run game, Anthony Richardson was supposed to be successful early in his career because of the threat of Jonathan Taylor, and the read option was a problem because of Jonathan Taylor. You take him out of the mix, I don't know who they have there else at running back, but it's not the same. He is the heart and soul of that offense. You take him out of the mix, and the Colts are reduced to being next to nothing on offense. That is a messy situation, but you're dealing with a messy owner, and that is why this situation is going to be so convoluted when it's all said and done. Get your popcorn. All right. Get your popcorn, because this one is going to be fascinating to watch unfold. And we've had some really interesting situations all offseason, starting with Lamar Jackson and his situation with the Ravens. That seems like so long ago now because he got the deal done. But it started with that. And we kind of progressed to all of these defensive tackles that wanted to be paid. And we got to those franchise taggies, and then the running back situation came up, and we had all those discussions. Aaron Rodgers was a part of the offseason. Is he going to retire? He went into the little retreat or whatever. He was going to end up in New York with the Jets. And then you saw his situation play out. We saw Lamar Jackson's situation play out. We saw, all of the defensive tackles get their money. The only one left now is Chris Jones. That could be a nice little standoff between he and the Chiefs. That's something to keep an eye on as well. But this one now is the one to focus in on. This one here with Jonathan Taylor, because this didn't have to occur. Irsay put his foot in his mouth, and now he's not backing down. He's doubling down on his bullshit, and he's hurting his team. In the short term, he's hurting his team. He's not helping them, but we'll see what happens. It couldn't happen to a better owner, though. What an ass he is. Anyway, I digress. So let's switch gears and go to our next segment, social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Did y'all see that Dalvin Cook, the Jets said, hey, he didn't seem like he was in any hurry to sign a contract. I said, what did you think? What did I tell y'all? Don't nobody want to be at camp. Dalvin Cook is like, yeah, nah, I think I want to sign with y'all in like a month from now. Like, he ain't in no rush. Let's get through all of this training camp stuff. I might show up for the preseason. But he's not in a hurry. He went to New England. He visited the Jets. He'll make a decision, but it ain't going to be, I saw this man on Good Morning Football like 2-3 days ago. I'm like, he's cold chilling right now. Dalvin Cook is. He's like, hey, this shit is nice. So he'll sign somewhere eventually. I brought up the Chris Jones situation. I know y'all saw that they're not very close right now. And that's a situation worth noting and keeping an eye on, because he wants to be paid. And we knew this was going to happen. He was going to see all these defensive tackles get their bread. And then he was going to look at the Chiefs and say, all right, now y'all know what y'all got to beat. And the Chiefs are like, you saw what we did to Tyreek, right? Hey, don't push us. We'd hate to have to do something that we don't want to do now. They're not getting rid of Chris Jones. But it could get interesting. You can't pay everybody. Now, they've already paid him once. And then they went out and spent all that money on the offensive line. And then they had to spend that money on, Patrick Mahomes. They had to continue to try to replenish some of the parts that they had lost. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again with him or not. They'll figure it out. They'll make it work. Anyway, I digress. Did y'all see? I'll save that for the end of the show. Let's get to the comment section, see what y'all got to say. Y'all know how this works. If y'all don't, real quick, if you're out there, you want your comment to be read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. If time permits, we'll get to as many of those hashtags as we can. But if you want to ensure that your comment is read, the way to do that is to use the super chat function to jump straight to the front of the line. And so we are on a time limit. We do have time constraints today. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to a ton of your comments. So if you want to make sure your comment is read, make sure you use the super chat function. So Mr. Pink, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Mr. Pink writes, what's up, Louie TEE? What's going on with you, Mr. Pink? Think Rivera makes a move for JT, despite Irsay saying they won't trade him. I expect him to take every boost possible, given this is his career on the line. JT could help us. Nah, that I would give that a 0% chance, Mr. Pink. I would give that a negative 50% chance. They're not trading for a running back that wants to be paid. Two, they don't need a running back. They just drafted one last year in the 3rd round. They have another one that they really like that is in the final year of his rookie deal. And they just drafted another one in the 6th round this year. So running back is one of the last things on their mind in terms of going out and getting a high priced, game changer at this point. They're not looking to upgrade the running back position at that level. So, no. Now, I saw that OJ Howard got released today, excuse me, by the Raiders. But at this point, I'm like, OJ can't stick on anybody's roster. So what does that say about him? That he's played for like 7 teams in 5 or 6 years. What does that say about him? Drafted by the Bucks, went to Houston, played for the Bills briefly. I don't even know if he made it to the regular season with the Bills. Raiders just cut him loose. I mean, how many teams has this dude been on? And if he can't stick, what does that say about him? So that would be a position that I think they wouldn't mind kicking the tires on a player like OJ Howard. But at this point, I don't know if that OJ is worth the squeezing. Does that make sense? No, if that orange is worth the squeezing. I don't know if it's worth the squeezing or not. Anyway, zero interest in JT. Washington has. C. Brunson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. C. Brunson, I don't see a comment from you, but if I do, I'll read it. I appreciate you for the love, C. Brunson. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. I got a hashtag here from Comacel Brown. Colts backup running back Moss just broke his arm in camp. I saw something to that effect where he had injured himself. I didn't know to what extent. But yeah, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, that's not going to give JT any more leverage at all. Because they're going to do with him whatever they were going to do regardless. I mean, the drop off from JT to whomever is backing him up or whoever's backing up Moss, it doesn't matter. There's a significant drop off. So that wasn't going to matter. It wasn't going to change anything anyway. Did y'all hear that? So this was another thing over the weekend. Zach Martin still hasn't reported to Cowboys camp. And Jerry Jones, just like Irsay, running his damn mouth. He didn't say anything flagrant, but he did say that they expect him to show up here shortly. And I don't know if Zach Martin has any intentions of showing up. But remember, the new CBA is set up so that they were supposed to discourage these type of situations. So he's being fined every day. And they can't rescind the fine. When he comes back, he's got to pay that fine. And Jerry's like, we're just going to keep letting him incur these fines until he shows up. So this could get ugly with Zach Martin, man, because Jerry's going to stand his ground. Unless they find a way to come up with some extra bread, they're not going to pay him. They're not playing around. Like Jerry is got his list of guys that get their bread, and he's not on it. So they can't afford to not have Zach Martin. I can tell you that much. So they better figure that shit out. C. Brunson writes, Lou, I didn't know how to super chat correctly. LOL. It's okay. When you do it for the first time or you haven't done it in a while, it can get a little bit tricky. He says, I feel like Sam Howell will have 3 OCs in 3 seasons like Jason Campbell did that derailed his career, in my opinion. Most greats have consistency. Thoughts? I mean, we'll see. That's 2 in a row, right? First year coming in the league, he has Scott Turner. Second year, he's got EB. If this doesn't work out, it will be a third in 3 years, and you'll be spot on. But, that's the thing that's troublesome is if it works for him, he's successful, but Ron still gets canned and everybody else does as well, and EB's no longer here, it'll be another change for Sam, and he'll have to adapt. And there's only so many times you can go through that before it starts to affect you. You know, you need consistency, you need continuity. I think that's why most fans want EB around. You know, that they keep trying to put Ron in the front office. Ron doesn't want to be in the front office. I don't know where these people get this stuff from. He doesn't want to be in the front office. He wants to coach ball. And if anything was indicative of how Ron feels about being in the front office, it's last year or the last 3 years for that matter. He said, look, I had to be a manager. That shit was killing me. I'm so glad to getting back to just being a football coach. So if you really think he want to be in the front office, think again. He just wants to coach ball, man. So this whole pipe dream of, yeah, Ron, you know, wins and gives EB, you know, an opportunity and moves up into the front office. Says who? Yeah, right. A lot of people want to see EB stick around so that you can avoid that exact scenario that you just brought up. So we'll see what happens. Jonathan Hankey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Oh, this is going to be good because this is my resident Colts fan right here. My guy Jonathan writes, well, Lou, us Colts fans can't have drama free, huh? LOL. Look, welcome to the party. We've been going through that for years here in Washington, right? When you got an owner like Irsay, drama's going to find your doorstep. You can't avoid it because he's going to make sure that drama finds you, even if you're not looking for it. He says, here's what I will say about Irsay's tweet. What he tweeted wasn't wrong, but he got to read the room better. And I said the same thing. He's not wrong with what he said. He just didn't need to say it. That's the problem. That's why I said Irsay isn't terrible as an owner from the standpoint of business. He just doesn't know what to say out of his mouth. And sometimes things are better left unsaid, and he can't help himself. He's got to make his opinion known. And that's what gets him into trouble, and that's what creates drama with him. He's never met a microphone he didn't like, similar to Jerry Jones. And that's the shit that ruffles feathers and gets people hot under the collar. Is like, bro, you doing too much right now. You didn't need to say anything. He could have had those same feelings and kept that shit to himself, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. But like you said, he didn't read the room. Now you're alienating people. Don't think that Jonathan Taylor isn't respected in that Colts locker room. You think you're going to just shit on him and the rest of those players aren't going to see this and not feel some type of way? They didn't even like how y'all did Carson Wentz last year. Now you're doing JT like this? Don't think that the other players in that locker room don't see this shit. It's a ripple effect. But he doesn't read the room. Jonathan Hankey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Also, JT along with his new agent are also part of the problem too, especially his agent, which might lead JT with this uncharacteristic behavior. Agents sometimes can be troublesome, you know, especially when they get into, you know, spats with ownership, because that doesn't do anything for your client, right? But you also have to protect your client and do what you think is in the best interest of your client. They've already made it clear that they don't plan on re-signing JT. So if you're the agent, you're trying to do everything you can to get your client out of there. And that may even include poking the bear a bit. What I don't think his agent understands, you're dealing with one of the pettiest owners in the NFL. Similar to Mike Brown when Chad Johnson wanted out of Cincinnati and he was doing, and Carson Palmer, same thing, wanted out of Cincinnati, and they were trying everything they could to get out and he wouldn't trade them. Carson Palmer even sat home for a year almost. You know, Chad Johnson, Washington offered 2 first-round picks for him, and he turned it down just off of principle. Nah, I'm not letting him out. Jim Irsay is petty enough to do that and bleed him dry in the process. You can't win with owners like that, though. Bruce Allen was the same way. We could have got a first-round pick for Kirk Cousins from San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, and he said no, and Daniel Snyder said, hell no, don't trade him to Kyle. We're not helping out the Shanahans. The hell you not for a first-round pick, you dumbass. But when you get caught in your feelings and you make it about You make it personal instead of business. That's how you end up hurting your franchise. And that's where Irsay is heading. He's going to end up hurting his franchise behind this. You don't want to pay him? Somebody else is willing to pay him, and somebody's willing to give you high draft capital? Move him. Don't let him walk away in 2 years for a third-round pick. A compensatory third round. Move him. Get something for him. He doesn't want to be there. Clearly, you don't want to keep him. Move him. But he's going to let his feelings get in the way. He's going to let his feelings get in the way. And so, yeah, his agent is definitely in the mix and a part of the problem. But again, his agent wouldn't have said anything if Irsay didn't start it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is not like the agent attacked them first and then Irsay responded. Irsay started it with the bad faith tweet. The agent responded, and then you had the little back and forth. You know what I'm saying? So, and in all of this, we still haven't heard from JT. Like, he hasn't said anything publicly. Everything he's done has been in a respectful, business-like manner. He's went to the GM, requested a trade. He sat down with the owner. He took the meeting with the owner. And clearly what he heard in that meeting didn't meet to his satisfaction and wasn't to his liking. And so he said, I want to be traded. And he made it public. He hasn't done anything, that was out of character for him. And I get it. JT's a humble guy. He's quiet, soft-spoken. But, this whole running back situation has got everybody on edge. All these running backs on edge. They all want the smoke now. I thought they were going to be like Cleveland and take care of him like they did Nick Chubb. I'm shocked that Indy is taking this stance, but maybe I shouldn't be. C. Brunson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, does that affect your opinion on QB1 if he has 3 OCs? Not really. It doesn't help him, but it doesn't hurt him. If you got a smart quarterback, I think Sam's a smart enough guy to be able to learn another system if he has to. Again, it's hard for a player to grow when he's constantly having to relearn or learn something new, right? You hear players all the time talk about playing fast. You're not allowed to play fast as a player when you're constantly having to learn something new. When you are allowed to play fast is when you know the system like the back of your hand. You don't even have to think about the responsibility of that guy, especially yourself. You already know what you have to do. You already know what everybody else is doing because you've been in the system for 3-4 years. It sucks when it's a new system and you got to keep teaching yourself different things, different concepts. It might be the same concept, but it's got a different title, different name. And that gets hard after a while because it used to be this. Now it's this. You know what I mean? So you have to unteach yourself that language and then teach yourself a new language. I mean, just think about it in these terms. You fought so hard to learn German, and then the next year they're like, hey, forget all that German you learned. Hey, learn this Swahili right here. All right. Like, that's hard. So, and think about doing that 3 times. So the first year you show up, hey, learn how to speak Spanish. You learn to speak Spanish. The next year, forget that Spanish, learn this German. You learn the German, you feel comfortable with it. And then finally, as you're ready to be expansive with that German, they're like, nah, forget that German. Learn this Swahili. Well, damn. Okay. I mean, I'm going to do it, but it's just getting old. The Booty Creek Cheek Freak. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Randolph. I'm going to take one more comment, then we're going to move on to the final segment of the show. And this one is from my guy, Rich, who writes, Lou, I'm scared. This line can destroy our season. Leno allowed 8 sacks last year, tied for 5th worst. Wiley allowed 9 and was tied for 3rd. Gates, high snaps. I'm worried, to say the least. This is what camp is for. Now, as an offensive coordinator, it's your job to help out your tackles. It's your job to help. Like, Gates is going to have to get the snaps down. We got other dudes that can play center now. If he can't figure this shit out, this is why you draft Ricky Stromberg. This is why you brought back Tyler Larson. Like, we got options at center. We're not tripping about that. but he's going to be fine. Gates is going to be fine. It's not like he's never played center before. We're not dealing with a guy who, like, this isn't last year when we had to put um, uh, our guy, our guard at center, and we got high and low snaps and things of that nature. He'll be fine. It, the 8 sacks for Leno last year, the 9 for Wiley, it's definitely troublesome, but we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, when you shop on the clearance rack, you can't be mad when you put your shirt in the dryer, you wash it, you put it in the dryer, and the shit shrinks. Okay? You can't be upset when you wash that shirt and it starts to fade after one wash. You got it with a pink tag for a reason. So understand, we went shopping for a clearance item and we're starting them at tackle. We paid Wes Schweitzer money essentially for a starting right tackle. Wes Schweitzer is a backup interior offensive lineman. That's the kind of bread we just went out and spent on Gates, and similar bread was spent on Andrew Wiley. So when you get the results that you get, if they're not what you are hoping for, you can't be mad. My hope is that EB will take the pieces, do his best to offset any deficiencies that we may have. Sam's legs are also going to come into play, but they got to do their job. They got to protect. And if you got to keep a back end, you got to get a tight end to chip, so be it. But they got to figure it out. It's early, man. It's early in camp. So I'm not going to freak out. I want to see what the preseason looks like. We get to the preseason games and we struggling. We can't protect anybody. And Sam's back there struggling because he has no time, or he's being flushed out of the pocket and it's constantly 3 and outs on these drives in the preseason. Then I'm concerned. But until we get to that, I mean, they're going to be practices where I expect them to struggle in camp. I expect them to struggle. Just like I expect Sam to have his days in camp. We'll see what happens. I understand. I get it. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to our final segment of the show and garbage time. So, a couple of things. Did you see the preview for Hard Knocks? I seen a little something. Aaron Rodgers talking to the quarterbacks, telling them to enjoy it, make friends with other people in the locker room, don't sit with the same guys at lunch, things of that nature. It should be interesting. And, Aaron Rodgers is he's an eccentric guy, but he's also getting towards the end of his career. And I think you got a different perspective when you get to the end of your career. So interested to see Zach Wilson. I told you that's, to me, is the biggest storyline. Like, where's his head at? He was disastrous last year. And so just so we're clear, I'm gonna leave y'all with this. The IR is out to task. All right. He's back, and he's back with a vengeance. And he's out here reaching out and touching folks. Protect your stuff at all costs. All right. So last week when we spoke, Joe Burrow went down. We dodged a bullet there. It's a calf strain. Will he be ready for week 1? That's the hope, barring no setbacks, but we'll see what happens with that. But it's not an Achilles, which is what it looked like initially. I was a little nervous. So that's good to know. We found out that same day that the injury that Jalen Ramsey sustained was a torn meniscus. He's already had surgery on that. And he's going to be out until December at the earliest. He claims he's going to beat the timeline that he's been given. We'll see. If the Dolphins stink, there's no reason for him to come back. If they're in the playoff chase or they're a good football team, he may be back out there, sooner than that. We'll see. But that's good to know he's not gone for the season, but that's a big blow to them. They brought him in to be a big piece opposite of Xavier Howard. Tim Patrick, man, I feel for that dude, man. I feel for Tim Patrick because he busted his ass to get back. Remember, he tore his ACL last year in camp and missed the entire season last year. And then he busts his ass to get back, and he blows out his Achilles first week of camp. He's done for the season. That's a devastating blow to the Broncos because Patrick is a big body. He was a guy that made a lot of plays 2 years ago, was really ascending. He got that contract, and this is why players want the contract. They want that security just in case some shit like this happens. 2 years in a row, he's went down. As soon as he got that contract, 2 years in a row, he's gone down to major injuries. So he's done for the year. So again, Reaper's out here touching folks, out here to task, right? Cowboys running back that they signed in free agency, Ronald Jones, suspended the first 2 games of the season for, I think, the league's substance abuse policy. So he probably took something in a supplement or something that he wasn't supposed to take. And so they reached out and touched him, 2-game suspension for him. So again, it's not just the Reaper out here touching folks, but just be careful, man. Reaper's starting to get busy, and it's tough out here in these streets, man. It's tough. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, heard the line battles today, more even than not. It was the first team D-line was really good against the first team O-line. Things kind of evened out a little bit more in the one-on-one drills. And when they went against the second team D-line, they were able to have some success. But the first team offense struggled with getting the ball in the end zone, in the red zone drills. They got stymied at the 1 like 3 different times by the defense. And I think they finished it up, though, with a touchdown pass, a 1-yard touchdown pass to Logan Thomas. But they struggled. They struggled to move men against their will, create a new line of scrimmage down at the goal line to get in. And so that's the problem. Like, they're going to have to figure some shit out. But again, it's early in camp. The one-on-ones, the offensive line held their own in those. There were some, clear winners. But for the most part, they held their own. But in the team periods, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. But Sam Howell had a better day, and that's a positive because he had struggled each of the last 2 practices, especially on Saturday. So it was good to see him kind of bounce back and have a strong showing today. So that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 353rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you again on Choice Day. And you remember, Choice Day is the Hall of Fame game. So we'll get Jets and the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be seeing a lot of this probably on Hard Knocks episode 1 is my guess. I could be wrong. That might not be till week 2 of Hard Knocks, but I think we'll see this preseason game, this Hall of Fame game on Hard Knocks. But anyway, I digress. I'll be live. We'll talk about that Hall of Fame game and the excitement about just seeing football. Again, the game itself is going to be trash. We all know that. Not really going to try to hype that game up. It's going to be garbage. But it's just going to be good to see football on the television again. Professional tackle football, not XFL, not USFL, NFL. So looking forward to that, among other topics. We'll see if anything else arises before we meet again on Thursday. But in any event, C. Brunson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, need a triple up from you. Reign of Terror series was fire. Hey, man, I appreciate the support, man. It was critically acclaimed, was that series. The numbers, it didn't do like crazy numbers, but the people that did watch loved it and made sure that I knew that they really loved it. And I definitely appreciate the support. So thank you so much, C. Brinson, and everybody else that watched that series. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you guys to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted you. And I'll kick it with y'all on Thursday. If you're a Washington fan, you'll hear from me tomorrow. Another day of camp, another day of pads. So we'll be back like cook crack tomorrow, talking about what went on in day number 7 of the NFL or of the Commanders training camp. And then I'm going to start revving up. I think next week we're going to start revving up, maybe even go 2 a days. We're going to go through, or I might just go through the entire divisions on the podcast. But we're going to start looking at every single team in the NFL as we get ready for the upcoming season and look at these teams, preview them, see what I think is going to happen with them. So we're going to get that party started probably next week. So put that down on your calendars as well. We'll start going through these divisions one by one. So with that said, you guys, get out of here. Have a good one. I'll catch up with you guys next time. Until then, y'all take care. God bless. Good night. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
LouieTeeNetwork.